Morning Joe last week, Mika Brzezinski said something pretty controversial that didn't seem to get a lot of attention. She talked about Hillary Clinton's campaign during the election and how they didn't necessarily like the tone that Mika Brzezinski took. Now, understand that there have been other past hosts on MSNBC who have been critical of individuals in the White House, and they've gotten some negative feedback from Washington about their tone, and it seems like it also happened to Mika Brzezinski. Now, during the election, Brzezinski made some comments on her show about the fact that it's not really in the bag for Hillary Clinton, and it seems as though there's a certain kind of arrogance within the Hillary camp that could be dangerous. They could be underestimating Donald Trump's, possibility of winning. And so here's what she had to say about a call that she got from the Hillary camp as a result of her comments.
Listen, all this other stuff. I was concerned the campaign was not understanding that perhaps there was an arrogance. They needed to sort of get off their high horse and understand that this isn't over. I'll just say it. NBC got a call from the campaign. Like I had done something that was journalistically inappropriate or something and needed to be pulled off the air. I mean, think about that. Yeah. That's just... That's shooting the wrong messenger.
By the way, Mika, there were also people surrounding the campaign that tried to tell the campaign it was in trouble. Those people were shut out.
And here we are.
So, I've been there, sister. and so some are skeptical, like, oh, really? Would they really do that? You're not paying attention. So, yes, powerful people in Washington call the media all the time, and I would argue that Democrats do it more than Republicans do. Now, Republicans do a better job of beating down the press and say, oh, you're so liberal, and then you get the press to go, okay, no, I'm not, I'll be super conservative.
They do a good job at manipulating the conversation.
Yes, and look at what Trump just did. Right after the election, he pulled in 19 executives and anchors from corporate media and basically told them, hey, know your role. I'm in charge now. You shouldn't even go to that meeting.
I totally agree.
You're supposed to be the watchdogs of the government. I'm not interested in what his commands are for how I should conduct my journalism. That's not his business. So, but if you think the Democrats don't do it, you're enormously naive. And the Hillary Clinton team, they care so much about manipulating and controlling the media. Let me put it this way. So, look, when I was at MSNBC, I had issues with the Obama administration. So, what Anna was referring to, a lot of you know this story. I got told by the person who runs MSNBC, who still runs it, Phil Griffin, that Washington was not happy with my tone and that NBC was not outsiders, they were insiders, and I needed to act more like it. And I didn't, and hence I left MSNBC over that disagreement. And so a lot of people were skeptical, like, oh, come on, really, they're coordinating with the government? Yeah, they do. There's a ton of pressure. First of all, these campaigns spend a lot of money on air. And so the Hillary Clinton campaign is spending a ton of money with MSNBC.
Right.
So if their top advertisers call, they take that call. And I've told this story before. They once asked me to move one of their sponsors down a story. They wanted me to take it out. I didn't do it. But I had it in the first paragraph, and that's part of why they were on prompter, because they want to check your scripts before the show. And they had me move it to one of the lower paragraphs about their sponsors. So it's not just that it's the government which has control over their mergers, their regulations, which is to the tune of billions of dollars for their business, but it's in the campaign cycle, it's also their advertiser. So do they give notes to these media companies? Hell yes.
Of course they do. We have evidence of it as well. And it was something that was huge during the election after the DNC's emails got hacked, right? But look, aside from the money involved and the regulation involved, there's also this obsession with keeping close ties with politicians so you can get them on their shows, so you can get them on your shows, right? So if you're going to be highly critical of a politician or members of that politician's camp, they're unlikely to come on your program. And corporate media has this idea that everyone cares about getting the big names on your show. But a real journalist doesn't really care about the big names. They care about holding those big names accountable for their actions. And in this case, Mika Brzezinski's criticism was mild. It was so mediocre. I mean, I wouldn't even say that she was like, oh, heavy hitter. She like really went after Hillary. No, she gave you advice that you should have taken while you were running your campaign.
And in this segment, she briefly mentioned it, and some are saying like, well, you know, if that really happened, they would have made a bigger deal out of it. No, they wouldn't, because her bosses don't want a big deal out of that. You think they want that story out about how they cater to the politicians, to government, and to their advertisers? They don't. That's the last story they want out. That's why she mentioned it. Everybody's like, okay, okay. Anyway, what's next, right? Because they want to move on. They don't want to talk about that on air. I guarantee you that she got in a world of trouble for saying that on air.
So
that's why it was briefly mentioned on Friday and then never mentioned again.
Yeah, so let me give you guys the evidence that we do have. As everyone knows, there was a DNC leak. The emails were hacked into, and we got a bunch of information about what was happening in Hillary's camp. So one of the emails that really stood out had to do with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and other members of Hillary's camp going after, you know, big name reporters or hosts and basically telling them to know their role. So one of the emails was sent on May 18th of this year to Chuck Todd with the subject, "Chuck, this must stop." In the email, Wasserman Schultz forwards Todd an article from Breitbart's Ian Hanchett, glossing the criticism Wasserman Schultz had received from the Morning Joe co-host. Brzezinski is quoted as saying that Wasserman Schultz should step down over her poor handling of the Democratic primary. Now, just before contacting Todd, in an email to the DNC communications director, Luis Miranda, Wasserman Schultz was more forceful, writing, "This is the last straw. This is outrageous. She needs to apologize." So it goes on and on. I have more evidence, but these emails indicate that they're watching very, very closely to see who's saying what. And if they have any control over that person, they'll try to flex some muscle and get them off the air.
So two notes about that. Again, I was inside the machine, so I have some insight into it. One is the reason Chuck Todd's involved. Why are they emailing Chuck Todd? Because when Chuck Todd covers the White House, the first question in Democratic administrations almost always goes to Chuck Todd, because NBC plays ball. And if you don't play ball, you don't get the first question. Maybe you don't get any questions. So that why? Because why? If it's about Brzezinski, why email Chuck Todd? Because hey, Chuck, remember what we're doing here. Get back on message. And why do they care more about Mika Brzezinski than Joe Scarborough? Because they assume she's considered a liberal, which is already funny, but that liberals must carry their water, and so they get much more angry at liberals than they do at conservatives. So you should see their rage against me. And so that affects our show. I'll get back to that in a second, but more emails.
Right. So other emails indicate that DNC officials were arranging to get Brzezinski and Wasserman Schultz to speak to each other on the phone to clear up some misperceptions of the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz that she, Brzezinski, has expressed on air. DNC communications consultant Ryan Banfill wrote on May 18th. Now, here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz comments in regard to a potential meeting with Brzezinski. She writes, "She's already served as a judge and jury without even bothering to talk to me. Not sure why I would trust having a conversation with her would make any difference, or that she even matters, to be frank."
Then why are you all upset about it?
Yeah, it seems like you're really upset.
You know, I hear that all the time. Like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Well, then why are you yelling? And why are you so threatening consequences and all these things? Because it does matter, and you're used to manipulating the press and getting away with it. Sorry, you got caught with your hand on the cookie jar. That's what happened.
Yeah, look, I think that Hillary, so many people want to pinpoint one thing that led to Hillary losing. It wasn't one thing, but one of the major things was the fact that she refused to accept the fact that she was flawed, and so did her camp. They refused to accept that from the very beginning, which is why they did everything they could to undermine Bernie Sanders and ensure that Hillary Clinton won the nomination. And look what happened.
So, as Anna pointed out, Mika Brzezinski's barely liberal, and her criticism of Hillary Clinton was super mild. Now, our criticism of Hillary Clinton was significant, and we're actual progressives. So, were there any Clinton surrogates on the Young Turks during the election? Oh yeah, there weren't. Now, we have an audience of 80 million unique viewers. They're largely 18 to 34-year-olds who are progressive but a little undecided about who to vote for. You can't ask for an audience more that you should appeal to if you're the Clinton team.
Right.
They should have been dying to be on this show. By the way, did you see any Hillary Clinton ads on the Young Turks? No, you didn't. So, this is how they play ball. Mm-hmm. If you are on the right side and you kiss up to them, then you get goodies, access to their Weasley politicians who I have no interest in. And more importantly, money. You get ads.
Yep.
If you're MSNBC, you get millions and millions and millions of dollars in ads. If you don't kiss up to them, we've got trouble. Even the mildest criticism, we should talk to her and maybe even pull her off the air.
That's insane, by the way. Like, the idea of pulling someone off the air because you don't agree with their messaging is insane. I mean, that's essentially the state running the media.
And that's why we criticize other countries and their state-run media. You think we don't have state-run media? Ours is more subtle and mainly controlled by the money rather than just orders. But then it turns into orders if you don't understand the implicit threats. Exactly. And if you don't play ball, then you don't get any of the money. And the Clinton team thought they were so smart and that shows like ours needed them more than they needed us. But yet here we are, and they're in the dustbin of history. So what happened now? We need independent media to make sure that we hold corporate media accountable. The people that can make that happen is you. You make the Young Turks possible. tytnetwork.com/join. Join us. Be the revolution.